Hi, today we're going to begin our study of economics by looking at some of the basic concepts. More specifically, we're going to look at how consumers face scarcity of resources and why they must make trade-offs. And we'll look at the decision-making process that people use, weighing what we call marginal costs and marginal benefits to decide what are economically rational decisions that they can make. So first we sort of want to talk about this idea of scarcity, and to do that we're going to start by thinking through an exercise. And in class you will have worked on building your own zoo. So each group was given a 25 square acre zoo plot, and each group had to decide what animals they wanted to include in their zoo, recognizing there was limited space. And so you worked to try and figure out which animals you wanted to put on your zoo. And recognizing that you needed at least 2 of every animal you picked to be in your zoo, you recognize quickly that there's not enough space to do every single animal and have 2 of each one. So you had to make some hard choices. And that's the whole idea of scarcity, is that there's not enough space in the zoo, there are not enough resources in this world to do everything that we want to do, and so we have to give something up. And when we have to give something up, we call that our opportunity cost. So your opportunity cost is the next best alternative that you would have chosen if you had more resources. So as you're going through and picking your zoo, maybe you wanted to choose lions, but you ran out of space before you could get to lions. So if you picked elephants, and then you would have put lions in your zoo if you had more space, then the opportunity cost of choosing the elephant was the lion you had to give up because you didn't have enough space. We have all sorts of opportunity costs in our lives. Waking up to go to school in the morning represents an opportunity cost because you're giving up sleep in order to come to school. Doing homework has an opportunity cost because in order to do your homework, you have to give up something else that you would rather be doing that's more fun. So every decision has a choice. Therefore, no choice is free. Every choice has a cost to it. It's just that the decisions we make obviously have more benefit to us than choices that we don't make when we have to deal with this problem of scarcity. And it's that problem of scarcity that explains why you couldn't put 1 of every animal in the zoo. We also recognize that we don't want to put just all of 1 animal in the zoo. That's very boring very quickly. So while it may be interesting to see an elephant or a tiger, because we don't normally see those animals, if we had an entire zoo filled with them, the interest that I receive as a visitor of seeing a tiger begins to diminish as I see more and more tigers. It's a concept in economics that we call diminishing marginal utility. That is, the additional happiness I get from seeing something new, like a tiger, begins to get less and less and less the more I see them. And so we recognize that all goods, all things that we do, have this idea of diminishing marginal utility. They're a lot of fun at the beginning, but eventually we lose interest in them over time because they're adding less and less to our total benefit as we do more and more of whatever the thing is that we're doing. We should also recognize that not everybody has the same viewpoint. That is, not everyone would create the same zoo because everyone has a little bit of different tastes and preferences about what animals they're interested in and what animals they are not. And so economic decisions make sense for people as individuals. It is basically impossible to create a set of economic decisions that will make everybody equally happy because everyone is equally different in how they weigh the benefits and costs of their choices. The process we use for making decisions in economics is what we call marginal analysis. We're looking at not the total benefit that I get from a certain activity or the total cost of an activity, but we're looking at what's called the marginal benefit or the marginal cost. How much additional benefit do I get for 1 more unit of the activity? How much additional cost is there for 1 more unit? So I'm looking to decide whether or not every time I have to decide whether to continue an activity, does that activity bring me more benefit than cost? And we can think of that in terms of profit. So, for example, if I haven't eaten all day and I sit down for dinner, I'm extraordinarily hungry, and I take that first bite of food and it tastes really, really good. The benefit of that first bite is extraordinarily high, and the cost of that bite is very, very low because I haven't had anything to eat. And that second bite tastes really, really, really good, but it's not quite as good as the first bite because I'm not quite as hungry as I was before because now I've begun to eat. And the cost of that bite is very, very low, but it is slightly more than the first one. And if I keep eating at like the 50th or 60th bite, there's still benefit. That 60th bite tastes good, but not as good, not even nearly as good as the first bite. And now I'm beginning to get full. And so the cost of one more bite to me and my physical well-being is increasing as I continue to eat. And so when do I stop? Well, in a non-economic sense, you stop when you're full. But we don't want to use those phrases. We want to use economic vocabulary. So when do I stop? I stop when that very last bite I put in my mouth brings me the same amount of benefit as it does cost to my physical well-being. That's where we say the marginal benefit equals the marginal cost. And that's the last place where I have profit, where I am adding to my total benefit. Because the very next bite I take will actually make me worse off than I was before, which is why I don't take that bite. That's why I say I'm full, because it doesn't make sense anymore. It's no longer rational or reasonable for me to continue to eat because the happiness I get is overwhelmed by the cost. So when we're doing economic decisions, marginal benefit has to equal marginal cost or be greater than marginal cost in order for me to continue to do whatever activity or choice I'm making. You can look at another example of college. When we look at these data points, we can say, does it make sense to get a bachelor's or a high school degree? And the answer is yes, it makes tons of sense because the high school degree basically cost me no dollars out of my pocket, but I'm going to earn $800,000 over the course of my life. So would I basically pay nothing out of pocket to earn $800,000? The answer would be yes. Does a bachelor's degree make sense? Well, the answer is yes, because the additional benefit I get is $800,000 worth of earnings, and it would only cost me $75,000 to get it. So would I pay $75,000 to somebody else in order for them to pay me back $1.8 million? And I think the answer for everybody universally would be absolutely, absolutely yes. But does a doctorate make sense? Here, if we look at total benefit, doctorate makes tons of sense. $2.5 million gives me the most income I could possibly earn. But it doesn't make economic sense because the marginal benefit is outweighed by the marginal cost. If we look at the move from master's to doctorate, I'm going to earn $400,000 more, which is good, really good, but it's going to cost me $2.3 million to get it. I would never spend $2.3 million in the hopes of receiving $400,000 in return. That would be economically irrational. So a doctorate doesn't make sense for me, even though it has the greatest benefit. Instead, the best choice for me in this data would be to get a master's degree, because that's the point at which the marginal benefit is $100,000. That's the difference in my earnings. And that's equal to the cost of receiving that degree, which is also $100,000. So the master's degree is the best economic decision for me, even though it doesn't give me the most benefit, because it provides me with the greatest profit. These two concepts of opportunity cost and scarcity on the one hand and marginal analysis on the other will continue to come up as we begin to study some of the very basics of economics and the basics of markets over the next couple of weeks. So please make sure that you're comfortable with it, and we'll see you in next class.